Today we're going to talk about one of the most important dungeons in Raid. Hello everyone, Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here on the free to pause account, but we are going to be talking about the most important dungeon in Raid, Minotaur. Yes, Minotaur. Now, it's probably one of the most overlooked dungeons. It is certainly one of the most disdained dungeons because it is slow to run. There's no super raids in it. There's only level 15, and it does take a good amount of energy to finish Masteries on champions. But Masteries are some of the most powerful things you can put on champions. Masteries are so important that I don't consider a champion fully built until I have got Masteries on that champion. And part of my building process is to run them through Minotaur to level them up. And it's just the way I have built champions, for the most part since I've been playing the game, but it is definitely what has helped propel my free-to-play account as far as it has, including in the Hell Hades free-to-play challenge. Yes, I spent time in Minotaur, a lot of time in Minotaur, and came in second in the Hell Hades free-to-play challenge because I chose to focus on making sure that I had Masteries on the champions that needed the Masteries the most. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can run the dungeon, some of the most efficient ways to run the dungeon. We'll talk a little bit about Masteries, although I have a video. I'll try to link the video up here. Master of Masteries. It is a great breakdown on what all of the Masteries do. It is a very dry video because I literally go over every single Mastery in it. So grab some popcorn or some coffee, maybe cuddle up for a nap. It is a very, very good and educational video. I still stand by it. It is very helpful. But we'll talk about a few of the more important Masteries just in general, particularly the tier 6s while we're doing this video as well, because it feels like maybe showing you the importance of those tier 6 Masteries may help in part how important running Minotaur is. First of all, talking about how to solve Minotaur. Minotaur, fortunately, is pretty easy. Early on, especially on a very, very early game account, I generally recommend that you spend 800 gems twice on your first 2 damage dealing champions and have them just get all of their Masteries. Oftentimes that is your starter plus some other champion you may have gotten. If you've gotten the Tholen code, for example, Tholen would be a good one to do for. If you're getting Lemonici earlier, honestly, Lemonici, because you're going to get a 5-star soul for her, is probably worth putting Masteries on and 6-starring, because those extra stats early on are going to make her the best nuker on your account. So generally, you're going to want at least 1 nuker to have full Masteries, if not 2, because they are going to help carry your team through Minotaur. And early on, you're going to be running multiple champions through Minotaur at the same time. You're going to run your first main team through there as you're farming up Masteries. Ideally, you'd like to be leveling them up in Minotaur as you start, but very early on, that's kind of difficult because you need your first set of champions with Masteries before you can really unlock everything. That said, once you get to a much more advanced account, and it doesn't take that long to get to an advanced account where you can do this, you can generally have a single good nuker run through Minotaur and do it pretty quickly. So my Titus doesn't have any gear. As you can see here, he's level 28. I don't think I've actually done anything with him other than put some brews in him as well. And he needs some Masteries because eventually I'm going to want to build this dude. So we'll run him through Minotaur here, and my Alice, I'll show you the build at the end of this stuff, but she has an AoE, and then she has an ability to reset her AoE, so she'll get it back again, which allows her to get through the first 2 waves very quickly. So without Titus really having any gear of any particular excitement, you can see here he just died. He did actually get a chance to take a turn, but didn't really matter much. We're out of here in 30-ish seconds. Okay, 26 seconds, not too bad. I've done this in 15 seconds, which is pretty nuts, although to be fair, the 15-second one I believe was with Alice and Tholen both geared, and Tholen basically added extra damage as well, making it significantly faster as well. Alice does a great job, but there's all kinds of other champions that you can do. So let's take a look at Alice. I can kind of show you her build a bit, and then we can talk about other champions that you can use for basically the solo run for this. So these are the stats on my Alice. She's a little over 200 speed. She's got 250-ish crit damage. If I had less crit damage, it would just be slower. That's fine. 200 crit damage would probably be okay. She does have a cat's gaze on her, which certainly helps her one-shot the waves. Got good amount of attack. She has got some level of survivability, which is good because you don't want somebody that is so squishy that they will die against the boss. But for the most part, if they are fast enough and doing enough damage, they're probably not going to have a problem clearing it. The other thing that can be very helpful for you as well is simply having the Life Drinker Mastery. Life Drinker Mastery is going to heal them if they're ever below 50%. And if you're talking about somebody that is doing multiple tens of thousands of damage, that extra 5% heal is enough to top them back up to get them over that 50% in most cases. So they are not going to need the healing all the time, which means that they will generally keep themselves alive enough to kill the boss. You don't necessarily need Helm Smasher, although I like having Helm Smasher on champions that are ignoring defense. You don't necessarily need Savage, but Savage is certainly going to make it easier for you for your damage dealer because Savage does amplify the damage you're doing quite a bit. However, for Minotaur, it's not like these are high defense targets, so the benefits from Savage are not quite as good in this case as they are with other champions as well. But basically, you're looking for a champion that has ideally either 2 AoEs or a way to get back to their single AoE quickly. And ideally, you're also looking for a champion that is reliably going to use that AoE unless you're going to program the team. You don't have to program the team. So Alice does a decent job for this. Cleopteryx has got double AoEs, so she would be fine for this as well. Tholen, he's got the AoE on the A1 as well as the A2. He would be good for this. Unfortunately, he does like to use his A2 against the second wave, so he's going to take an extra turn there at minimum. But if he's fast enough, he'll do this A2, get his attack up, and then A1, or if for some reason this has come back up, he'll A2 again, get through the second wave, and from there, he'll kill the boss. Quintus would probably work. Quintus has got the AoE right here, but he also has this skill which resets the AoE as well if he kills somebody, and then this resets his other skill. So he'll basically bounce back and forth between his big single target nuke and the AoE, which means that he'll be very viable for getting to the boss, and then he's just got to be able to survive enough through the boss to be able to get it done. Herndig is another great example of a champion that can do this very, very well. Thor is great for this. I've used Leorius on my main. Honestly, sometimes your arena nukers are just fine for this as well. There are so many champions that can do this very well. Heck, Sun Wukong. If Sun Wukong is built well enough, and to be fair, on this account, my Sun Wukong is not built well enough to do that. He's got the AoE here where he'll clear the wave, and then this, if he does enough extra damage, will then clear the wave by killing everyone else on the second wave as well with that Staff of Wonder. So he's a very other good option for this. You certainly are going to want him to be a little tankier than normal because you don't want him to die against the boss unless whoever else you are bringing with him is not going to die so that he will be able to revive himself. But it's not super difficult. And if you are struggling with it, it doesn't hurt to bring a second champion. You're not killing yourself by bringing a second champion. So if my Alice, for example, wasn't up to the task, well, maybe I might instead also pair my Alice with my Ugo. Ugo then is going to give me the decreased defense to kind of speed up the waves a little bit. She gives me a little bit of extra healing, and she gives me an extra target to make sure that not always everyone's going to be focusing on my Alice or whoever else my damage dealer is. So somebody that does a decent, especially if they do a decent amount of damage, that is another way to go. Or maybe I might instead use Alice and Quintus. I mean, to be fair, Quintus is certainly a late game champion, so he's probably not the best option. But, you know, I could show Sun Wukong and Alice, or even Alice and Kale. It's not like you need impressive champions to get this done well. You want a good enough champion to do most of the damage and somebody else to either help you with the other damage or otherwise keep the champion alive. Taragi would be another good option as well. The ally protection will keep everyone alive. He's got the provokes that could be interesting. He throws out some poisons and decrease attack. You could throw a Rector Drath in there, another healer. Plenty of ways to duo this stuff, but once you eventually get two champions that can one-star it, you know, that can solo it, for example, and to be fair, my Tholen can solo it as well. And, you know, yes, he's got a lot of crit damage, especially because he's got the 5-star blessing and he's got a relic that helps as well, but he was doing it without the blessing. He was doing it without the relic. In fact, I had him soloing it himself just to get all of the experience as well. So why do you want somebody soloing it to run as few champions as possible? Well, let's go back and let's run this again with Titus. And one of the things that does is every champion that you have participating in this floor is getting experience. experience. Now, my Alice is 60, so she doesn't need the experience, so she doesn't get any new experience from this run at all, and that's fine. But doing it solo means that I can have other champions tag along, and those other champions will get more experience because I have less other champions that don't get the experience tagging along with the fight. So, I got 10,000, I think, experience with that. I didn't get a chance to catch that as well. Titus, in 2 runs, made it from level 28 to 29. So I can continue to run this with him, level him up, which is going to save me on bruise, or is going to save me on running him through campaign. So some of this stuff will actually save you some energy and resources running them up through Minotaur's Labyrinth with a single champion. The other thing you'll notice is we got some silver. Yes, 7,000 silver is pittance. It's not a lot, but you're going to have to run this 170-ish times. It's around 170-ish times. I don't remember the exact number. It's approximately 13-ish refills. It can be as low as 11. It is more likely to be a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 15, but 13 is a pretty safe average. So you're talking 520-ish gems, or the equivalent in refills, since you get daily energy, so you can use that daily energy to mitigate some of that as well. You can certainly use potions you have saved up as well. So yes, it is a significant investment in your resources and energy for a one-time cost. But why are masteries so important? Well, let's talk about why masteries are so important. Looking to start a brand new account in 2025 with Raid? Use my link down below, set up a new account with a brand new email, and you can start off with Elenarl, a wonderful legendary that can do all kinds of fun stuff for you. And at level 15, you'll also get a Tagore, a wonderful support reviver who has been a big carry for me on my accounts. You also use the code Demon Slayer to get Tholan as well, and to get Lemonisi at the moment, because Lemonisi is currently the free login champion. Start yourself off with 3 great legendaries and a wonderful epic, and enjoy starting a brand new raid journey in 2025. So first of all, to show you how important I think masteries are, let's just take a look at every champion I have 6-starred on this account. We're not going to show all of them, but Tholan, masteries. Alice, masteries. Ludex, masteries. You'll see I didn't actually finish all of his masteries because I determined that one of these level masteries wasn't majorly important to him. I still think it's actually worth getting at some point in time on him, but at the time I was, juggling some other stuff, so I did not get all the masteries. But again, I got enough to get the 6-star mastery. Okay, apparently Fabian, I have not finished his masteries on, so I will take it back. Apparently I don't have them on all of them, but that is a mistake on my part. I need to get that one, and that's a good point. I need to get masteries on him. I'll have to bring him into Minotaur. Mithrala, masteries. Sun Wukong, masteries. Quintus, masteries. Arbiter, masteries. Tyrant, masteries. Rector, masteries. Dirindil, masteries. Husk, masteries. Croydian, masteries. Coldheart, masteries. Kale, masteries. Helmet, masteries. Sill, masteries. In fact, I'm still running the ones on Sill. Sill is a pretty recent addition here too. Hotatsu, you'll see he's a 6-star. I don't have all of his masteries, but I'm running him. I've been working on Hotatsu. He'll slowly but surely eventually get all of these masteries, because masteries add so much damage, so much improvement to a champion. What am I talking about? Well, specifically, we're talking about the 6-star masteries here. War Master, or the equivalent here of Giant Slayer, add a ton of damage to everything you do. Specifically against bosses, 4% of a target's max HP is a staggering amount of damage. And on even non-damage dealers, having that extra mastery is so helpful. So Sill, I'm going to be using Sill in all kinds of places and against bosses. So having War Master gives her the ability to do a ton of extra damage for free without having to do anything else weird with her build. Now, it's only a chance. It's a 60% chance, but it is a chance. But against the waves, that's an extra 4% damage hit. It's not going to be as big against the waves because obviously they're not going to have as much max HP, but it's still going to be a big deal. The other thing that this is very useful for is if you have something like Life Drinker, well, that damage that you do from War Master counts for Life Drinker. So that's going to help keep you alive in Life Drinker. You've got Leech out there, well, that damage counts towards Leech. That's going to help you. There are all kinds of great ways to improve your champions by getting these masteries. You want to go down and step down? The A1 Methodical, 2% 2% damage increase per A1 attack up to 10. Well, damage dealers, that's 10% extra damage on an A1 that could be a very big damage dealer. That's extra damage. On this champion, who I'm not building for damage per se, it's still 10% more free damage. Here you go, 6% extra damage when attacking champions with higher max HP. Well, that's almost everybody in PvE. That's 6% extra damage. You know, Life Drinker, that's some extra healing that might keep you alive. 10% extra crit damage. Well, if you're not gonna, you know, to be fair, if you're not building somebody with crit, it's not huge, but it's nice to have in case you do crit, because you will crit occasionally. It does happen. 5% when you're attacking with full HP, certainly very conditional, but Scylla the Drakes is going to be healing constantly, so she might be full more often than not. You know, there's all kinds of useful things here that add extra damage. Or things like Whirlwind of Death. Increase your speed by 6 for each enemy killed. Well, if I'm killing enemies, that's 18 extra speed. That's killing people faster. You know, there's all kinds of cool things you can do here. Helm Smasher is the other big one. Helm Smasher is the big offensive one for champions where you're going to be ignoring defense anyway. Now, it's only a 50% chance to proc, but 25% extra ignore defense is honestly the equivalent of around 75% extra crit damage. It's like 50 to 75%, but it scales up the higher the defense the boss is or the champion is. So if your damage dealers being able to ignore defense against Hydra may not be a big deal against normal Hydra, but for hard Hydra, it'll get better. For brutal Hydra, even better. And for Nightmare Hydra, that's one of the best ways to add damage to your champions is ignoring defense. Now, if you're not building them for damage, then you're still going to do more damage with War Master against Hydra, for example, which is why Syl gets War Master and not Helm Smasher. For your damage dealers, for your Tholans, your Thors, anybody that's going to be in arena, that is where Helm Smasher is absolutely amazing and a huge, huge damage boost. Flawless Execution, 20% extra crit damage. If your champion needs to be 100% consistent, then Flawless Execution is a great way to go. This was the go-to for a while for Coldheart. I prefer, honestly, War Master now for Coldheart, because using Coldheart against places where that crit damage gets maxed out, where I cannot do more damage than I can with her max HP hit, then War Master or Giant Slayer gives me a chance to just get extra flat damage. Very, very helpful. Seer, very good with Flawless Execution. I also like Helm Smasher on her, but to be fair, Helm Smasher gives a little level of RNG, whereas Flawless Execution is a flat 20% crit damage. But again, keep in mind, this is possibly the equivalent of 50 to 75% extra crit damage when it procs. It's just not reliable. You want to look at the support tree? There's a couple of really good ones in the support tree. Something as simple as 3,000 max HP is huge. If you're looking for extra tankiness, that's an extra 3,000 max HP. That's like throwing on, you know, an extra banner effectively. Very, very helpful. Timely Intervention, great for your revivers. Increases champion's turn meter by 20% whenever an ally hero drops below 25%. Not going to work in speed tuned teams, but sometimes if you want a reviver, particularly a PvP reviver, this Timely Intervention can be a great way for them to jump into the turn and activate that revive, especially if you're doing something like a Cardinal team, for example. Timely Intervention on Cardinal would be great because you stick her very slow in the Stone Skin gear, and then when your 3 champions die, she gets a 60% turn meter boost and almost gets a chance to go almost immediately. That's pretty huge. You've got Oppressor here. Oppressor is one that I actually like on your poison champions and your burn champions, for especially the poison exploders. It's one of my favorite ones for poison exploders. Increase the turn meter fill rate by 2.5% for each active debuff cast by this champion, stacks up to 10%. And what this basically does is this makes champions who are going to try to solo something and are constantly putting out those burns and constantly putting out those poisons, they're going to get more turn meter faster, which is huge. And it talks about the fill rate, which I still haven't figured out exactly how this goes. I don't know if this is an extra 10% speed effectively, or if your turn meter literally fills 10% faster. And those are the difference between those two, means that if you're getting turn meter fill other ways, that also would get the additional 10%. So pretty big there. And then finally, Eagle Eye, that's probably the one I'm going to go with on my Fabian, which is part of why I do need to actually deal with it on Fabian, because that's 50 extra accuracy. And 50 extra accuracy, well, in today's modern game, getting accuracy on champions is not as hard as it used to be. But I can tell you, getting an extra 50 accuracy from Mastery is huge in things like Arena, where you are going to struggle to get all the accuracy you need otherwise. It also can be very helpful if you are struggling to get enough accuracy for some of the more difficult bosses. If you're struggling to get to the 450 450 or 500 accuracy it requires to get debuffs on like the Sand Devil at the end, or the Iron Twins near the end, or maybe you're trying to get burns on your Frost Spider because the Frost Spider has a ton of extra resistance when he's not burning. Those are all great options and great reasons to take Eagle Eye. And finally, the defense tree, which to be fair, I think is the weakest of the trees in general, though there's some great stuff in the defense tree. That's not saying it's bad. I just find that oftentimes I need the support on the offense tree because the support gets you extra accuracy and affects your debuffs. But you've got an extra 200 defense, could be very good for a defense-based champion. You've got Bulwark, which is kind of fun, decreases the damage of all allies received by 5%. This champion receives them instead. It is basically an ally protection style of thing here. Can be fun on like a UDK, for example, that can actually help mitigate the AoE attacks a little bit then as well. Could be helpful for keeping people alive in Hydra, where you have somebody that you know can regenerate themselves and take this extra damage, so you can give them Bulwark and they'll be able to help other people as well. You've got Fearsome Presence, which is the only way to increase the chance of dropping any of these crowd controls. You'll notice that Petrification is not one of these things under here, which is kind of unfortunate. That means that you don't have an extra chance with Mithrala, for example, to land the Petrification. At least I don't believe that's the case, unless Polarium hasn't updated that, which, to be fair, could be the case as well. It does, however, affect sheep. So if you have these sheep, the mastery that gives sheep, Fearsome Presence can help you sheep people. That can be a big deal. And then finally, Unshakable is just 50 resistance. Resistance is so hard to stack that if you're building a high resistance champion, you're almost always taking Unshakable just to be able to get this extra 50 points of resistance. Because if you want resistance, you want all the resistance. So when should you be running Minotaur? Well, that's difficult because there's rarely any specific events that tell you run Minotaur, which is honestly kind of unfortunate. I think it's actually something that Raid actually should be doing at some point in time. That said, Champion Training Event is a great time to do it. As I mentioned before, you're getting levels in there. So you're ideally having one champion that you want to run. You're ideally having a single champion who is going to carry everybody in Minotaur. You don't even need to gear the champions you're running through Minotaur. In fact, it is generally faster if you don't, because if they're ungeared, then they will not be taking a lot of turns and you will move significantly faster. And saving a bunch of time in Minotaur is huge, because if you're running at 170 times, 10 seconds per run savings is, big. That's an hour or two. That's a lot of extra time you're saving. So definitely pay attention to that. But champion training is a great time to be running that because you are be training champions as well. Non-personal rewards CVCs are actually really, really good times to run Minotaur because you get some points. So you're not doing anything, but you're certainly not getting tons of points. Sometimes regular CVCs are a good time to run them just because the way the tournaments line up, it happens to work out well for them. But honestly, whenever you can get a decent amount of extra energy, so for example, if you have the clan shop energy that you can buy in the clan shop, well, there you go. That's good energy to put towards Minotaur. If you don't want to do it during a CVC, well, then wait till Thursday and run it after the CVC. Run it during, again, one of these champion training events, double dip, get as much of that stuff as you possibly can. Overall, you're just looking for good times to run Minotaur. Now, if you run Minotaur you take a champion that is a level 1 6-star, a single champion will get up to around level 50, somewhere between 48 and 52, and then you're going to have to brew them up the rest of the way or find some other way to level them up. If you choose to run 2 champions through Minotaur, well, from level 1 to level 60, if they're 6 stars, you can pretty much get both of them to nearly or exactly at 6 stars and be done with it and not waste a lot of runs without getting energy. If you want to run them as 5 stars to get them to the 50 and then get them to 6 stars, and to be fair, I like to do that myself, it does mean that you're going to finish out your masteries well before you get to level 60 as a 6-star, but you can certainly find other ways to finish mopping them up afterwards. The Guardian Ring is actually a great place to throw champions that you're not necessarily using constantly and have them finish up their levels 55 through 60, and if you need to pull them out of there to use them occasionally, you pull them out, you use them, you throw them back in there as well. That's kind of how I've been using this for this particular account so far, is I've been champions that are built enough that I don't necessarily want to run them anymore through there, or I'm just finishing leveling them up. Like, I have not built my Zavia yet, but I know I'm going to want to at some point in time. Shemnath, I might want to build her, so I might as well get her to at least level 50. Glycea, I use her in Faction Wars a little bit so might as well finish leveling her up a little bit as well. Tree Shield Knot I've been using for Faction Wars, and so he's mostly just finishing up to get to level 50. Siren I just recently made as a 5-star to help with Faction Wars, so might as well get her some levels because Shadowkin happens up for me tomorrow. That sort of stuff helps train some of those champions, help get some extra rewards, but you're talking about getting a couple extra million silver for running Minotaur. You're talking about saving yourself, 300-ish gems by not just spending 800 gems, but instead spending the energy. You can certainly take some time. You're getting some champion training rewards for it. You're leveling up the champions you're going to want to train up anyway. But mostly what you are getting out of Minotaur is you are getting a ton of extra masteries and damage. So the importance of Minotaur cannot be understated. Minotaur is possibly the most important dungeon that nobody wants to run in Raid Shadow Legends. So hey, hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know if you agree with this stuff. Maybe you disagree with this. Let me know if you'd like more detail in some of the masteries other than the video which I linked to, which I'll try to link to again up here. I'll probably have it at the end of this video as well. I really appreciate you guys hanging out till the end of the video. Hopefully you found this entertaining. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate you guys. You guys are absolutely amazing. One of the best communities in Raid and honestly in gaming. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And until the next video, I am Bront CatHerder.